Well, g'day everyone. It's the Two Ordinary Cops, and we're back yet again. Damo, how are you, mate?
Good, mate. Good. In Coffs Harbour.
I mean,
Yeah,
again.
I get around. Yeah, no, we're in Coffs. But another very good episode today. We've got a
Yes.
VIP.
Yep, we do. Mate, do you want to do the introduction?
Absolutely. So obviously we've completed the last few episodes speaking to Kath Nielsen, who was the partner of Brett Forte, Senior Constable Brett Forte, shot and killed in 2017 in Toowoomba, or in the Lockyer Valley. And today we are very honoured to have Susie Forte. How are you, Susie?
Good, thank you. How are you both?
Really good, really well, really good. And thanks very much for coming on with us. It's a real honour to have you on because you're in a very unique position, and especially for people who listen to the podcast, and especially police and police partners, you were both. You're a police officer and the partner of a police officer.
Correct, yes.
Yeah. So obviously we had a bit of a chat before we started, and look, we know that it could potentially be a bit difficult speaking about these things. I know it is 8 years ago, but it's still extremely personal matter and all the rest of it. So we're really appreciative of that, and I think the listeners will be really interested to hear your story. So if you're happy to do that, I mean, obviously we want to get to know you a little bit, and the listeners get to know you guys. So obviously, when Brett passed away, you guys were both serving police officers. So if you're happy, do you want to sort of introduce yourself and let us know how you got into policing, what your policing career was, and obviously how you and Brett met and all the rest of it, and then we can sort of speak about the incident later on if you're happy.
Yep, sure. So, well, thanks for having me. So, when I finished high school, so I'm a Toowoomba girl, born and bred. So, when I finished high school, I wasn't quite sure what I wanted to do. So, I started my nursing degree at the University of Southern Queensland. And then shortly after starting that degree, all I wanted to do was be a police officer. I don't know where it came from, but my passion was just to join the police. So as I was studying, I ended up putting my application in for the Queensland Police Service, and just prior to finishing that degree, I got accepted into the Queensland Police Academy. So, and they pretty much gave me 2 weeks. They said you can either start in 2 weeks at Townsville or wait until the following year to go to Oxley. So I gave up studying, took off and went to the Townsville Police Academy. So I started there in October 2002 and finished there graduated in May 2003. So from there I got posted straight to Mount Isa in my first year of policing. So straight into it. It's quite wild. So my first day on the job, I was into a wrestle on the main street and up the creek bed, so that was an adventure, but I learnt a lot. I did my first year there, then I went to Cloncurry for 6 months and went back to Mount Isa to finish my time back there. And then in 2005, I applied to come back home to Toowoomba. And so I, just prior to around July, I think it was, in 2005, so 20 years ago, I was accepted into a team in Toowoomba Station, a general duties team, and they had a little morning tea that they had in the office there for me because they knew that I was coming down and they wanted to meet me. So the very first person that came up to me that day was Brett. So he had a muffin in his hand, always had some kind of food in his hand, but he came up to me and he goes, "Do you want a muffin?" And then he started laughing. So that was it. I'm going, "Oh, who are you?" So he goes, "Oh, I'm Brett, I'm in your team." So from then on in, he was just a funny bugger, and him and I got along straight away. But yeah, it was a muffin that got me, so he chased me for a little while and I finally gave in.
Oh, very good.
Yeah.
What a smooth operator. Walks
Yeah.
up with a
Oh,
muffin to the
smooth,
dinner.
yeah, gosh. The kids would think that's the most daggiest introduction, but that's all right.
No, that's really good. So 2005, so that's quite a long career in Toowoomba Station.
Yeah,
Um,
so we stayed in Toowoomba Station until about 2008. Then we got posted to Caboolture, just because all of Brett's family is Toowoomba, and I had our first son Brody in 2009, so we sort of moved back down that way, and then we came back to Toowoomba in 2011.
okay, so a couple of
right.
years
Yeah.
away.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah, so Talk us through those years. Obviously, young married couple, you've got young kids, both working in the job. You want to just sort of tell us how that went? Take us through those years.
So when we went, so we left Toowoomba in around 2008, and when we returned, Brett went to the Tactical Crime Squad. He was in there before we left as well, but he loved the Tactical Crime Squad, so he won a position back in there, and I went straight back into general duties because I loved being operational, being on the road. So we both were on shift work full time. We're both always full-time shift workers, and so a bit of a tag team. So Brett would be a little bit more flexible with his roster. So he'd do a 2 to 10, see me at home, swap over with the kids, and then I'd go to work and do the night shift. So that was sort of how our life sort of went for quite a long time.
Yeah, that's hard going.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it is.
It certainly was. Yeah.
Proper ships. That's ships in the night, like the true definition of literally ships in the night.
Yep, and that's exactly what it was. Yep.
Yeah. So obviously, you guys, you're working together. Toowoomba's quite a nice place. It's family. It's a good place for a family and all the rest of it. But I mean, policing
Yeah.
is policing.
Yes.
So just, there are lots of police couples, and lots of people understand that.
Yep.
How did you define that? Did you differentiate between work and home?
So Brett and I, we did. That was Brett's big thing, was he just loved his family. So he would have been a part-time at-home dad if he could have. His family was everything. So he would try and disassociate from work when he was home. It was probably me more so that would come home and talk about some kind of job or incident that I had, just to debrief with Brett because he got it.
Yeah.
But other than that, work was work, and we'd come home and just try not to talk about it, especially with kids and stuff.
Yeah. No, for sure. That's a real one that we've spoken about so much. Just that you got to be able to break that up. You can't.
Yes.
That.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously that's just an important part of life, and I'm a big fan of just having a separation. But it's
Definitely.
more extreme when you've got people who work in not just the same police force, but the same police station. So I mean,
Yes. Yeah.
we had a few partners in Darwin but they might have been at different stations, so that worked out a little bit better for them because there was a bit more separation.
Yes. Yeah.
With work and home. But so obviously, Brett's in the Tactical Crime Squad. You would obviously know all the other guys in the Tactical Crime Squad. You know,
Yes. 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 I knew everyone that he worked with. So, and they'd come a lot and back up general duties at jobs too. So he'd sort of work a lot with the Tactical Crime Squad on the road.
Yeah, yeah. And now obviously we moved through, so that's life for a while. Policing's policing. There would have been big jobs, little jobs, small jobs,
Yes.
everything in between.
Yeah.
There would have been funny times, sad times, bad times. Policing is policing.
Yep.
You want to talk us through the day in May 2017?
Yes. So the 29th of May. So basically that day, I still remember it like yesterday. I was on a 7 to 3 because at that time I was the DV project officer. That's what my designated job was at the time. Basically, that was to sort of engage with high risk domestic violence aggrieved and stuff and try and assist there where I could. So my roster for a little while was mainly 7 to 3s or 2 to 10s in the afternoon. So I still remember that day. Brett was making the kids, making Brody's school lunch because Brody was only 9 at that time, and I started at 7. And I remember Brett was in his uniform dress ready to go when I left. And he said a really weird, this is probably just something that only clicked afterwards, but he always wore his wedding ring. And that day he just said to me really randomly, he goes, "Oh, I might just leave my wedding ring at home." And I said, "Oh, okay, why?" And he goes, "I just don't want it getting damaged." And so after all the years, he had always worn that ring, and then that day he put it in the drawer. And I specifically remember that, so I went, "Yep, okay." So gave him a kiss, and I said, "I'll see you at work." Anyway, that day, it was a real ritual. I'd always get my coffee from our favourite coffee shop in Toowoomba, and Brett and Kath, they worked quite often together. So without fail, they'd always go and get me a coffee because I couldn't get away from what I was doing. So that morning, Brett was being a little bit inappropriate, coming around where I was working with, and just being Brett, like sticking pens in people's ears and, giving him wet willies in the ear and stuff. I'm like, Brett, and I remember saying to Brett, I said, "Brett, just go get my coffee. Just get out, go get my coffee." He's just been a pest. Anyway, so he slowly walked down and About an hour later, he said, "Oh, your coffee's ready." So I remember he got me a coffee and a chicken wrap, and I put that in the fridge. Anyway, that was all in the morning, so that was all just very standard. And then I remember that morning, there was a call from our shift supervisor, and he said that obviously Ricky Madison, the person who shot Brett dead, police had been trying to find him for quite some time. That morning I heard that he was ringing up the Toowoomba Tactical Crime Squad that morning. So, and I heard someone speaking about it in the day room, because I was sort of in an area where I could, away from the day room, the police station, but nearby. So I remember getting straight onto the phone to the communications sergeant. I said, "Oh, I remember last time I did an arrest warrant just recently prior to that, where he was ringing up his ex-partner from a phone box in the Toowoomba, and she worked at a local school." So I got on to the comms sergeant. I said maybe direct crews to do patrols around phone boxes near where that his ex-partner worked. So I remember Kath actually got on the radio and said, "Yep, Brett and I will go check this phone box out," and general duties went to other phone boxes. And I was just sitting at the station, and a call came through from the general duties crew saying they've located Madison. He's in an area in Toowoomba near the top of the range, near a phone box. And so the officer that called that over the radio was in a marked police car. So that all happened quite quickly, and then within a few minutes there was a pursuit. So Madison proceeded down the Toowoomba Range. The marked police vehicle that first observed him followed. And then Brett being Brett, I think he was always very protective of other officers. So it was no surprise to me that Brett was following that marked police crew down the range, and he ended up saying he'll take over the pursuit. So I think that was more like a bit of a fatherly thing, because he did that often. He would sort of take charge or look after the junior officers and that. So I remember the pursuit was happening, and I know Kath said as well, Madison was doing things not out of the ordinary, but enough to sort of, to me, like, because I think I was working with his ex-partner for about 6 weeks, I knew he was very high risk, and I tried to say that many, many times to officers at Toowoomba Station that he had to be caught because he's dangerous. So when they started that pursuit, everyone was on the radio. You couldn't get on the radio. It's just very chaotic. But I remember going down the range. Brett was obviously driving, and Kath was on the radio calling, what Madison was doing. So he was up ahead. At one time, he's gone around road spikes, and he was clapping. And I heard someone say on the radio, he's got his hands out, he's giving himself a congratulations, he's clapping, he's done well. So when I was sitting at the station, I was actually I was very concerned even at that stage, because after knowing what I had a bad feeling that something was happening just based on what information that police knew at the time. So obviously we knew that he was wanted for attending his ex-partner's house in March, just a couple of months prior, with she described it as being a pirate gun that he let off a round. So we knew he was quite dangerous. He was evading police. No one could find him. And there's warrants out for his arrest. And I was involved in one of those arrest warrants as well. And so I'm backtracking a little bit. But in the lead up to that, I was getting quite frustrated because no one was listening when I was saying he needs to be caught. It was a bit of a thing that outstanding property offenders had priority. So if you were out breaking into houses and cars, that was a priority for some sections of the Toowoomba Station. DV offenders, like domestic violence offenders, that wasn't a priority. So after a few weeks of me getting frustrated that no one was really doing too much about trying to find him, I became more involved in the investigation side of it. So I engaged a lot with Madison's ex-partner. I obtained video footage of him attending at her house one time, giving the finger to her camera footage. And then there's another time he was contacting her in breach of the domestic violence order, so I followed that up. And I regret to this day even getting Brett involved, but I remember, because no one was helping, Brett came down to me one day and he goes, "Oh, do you need a hand with any of your matters? Because being Tactical Crime Squad, they would help if there's any outstanding people, any warrants or anything like that. And I remember telling Brett around about April, about a month prior, I said, look, I've got Madison's he's wanted. I've got so much work to do, but an arrest warrant needs to be done because I've got all the evidence gathered and all that. So Brett was the one that actually swore out an arrest warrant, so we could just get flags for him to say that he's wanted. So nothing was really on the system to say that he was a wanted person, like as in he can be arrested and put into custody. So that warrant was issued, and then I ended up doing another arrest warrant myself around about the 17th of May, I think it was, about 12 days before Brett was killed. So anyway, that pursuit was happening. I remember they were calling it, and like one lot of road spikes didn't work. Other crews from Gatton got involved as well. Anyway, I remember Kath calling over the radio that they're going off road, and I remember her saying, he's gone off road, and where they were I wasn't quite sure. I just knew it was down the Toowoomba Range near Gatton somewhere. And Brett actually had the paddy wagon, so it was the only vehicle at the time that could probably go down this little bit of a hill that they had to go down to follow Madison. So Brett went down there, and the other crew said they couldn't go down there, so they had to go the long way around. So I remember Kath calling that they're going along, I can't even remember, maybe Ford's Road or something like that it was. Anyway, around this time, I had two female colleagues I was working with, and I remember just saying to one of them, I said, look, Madison's ex-partner, she lives down the range, why don't we go the back way in case he turns off to go to her house? So my priority was to make sure that she was safe, because I thought he would kill her eventually, so that's why I've arranged for her to get away from her house, remove the kids, etc., so she was safe. But my first idea that morning was to go and check that she was okay. So we had a marked van, so I was driving the van, and my two female colleagues, we headed the back way. So Brett was going down the opposite way down the range, and we were going the back way, which would have eventually came out onto where they were anyway down the range. But when they said that he had gone off a different path, we knew that where we were wasn't anywhere near he was going. So we've turned back, and then all of a sudden, like, there was a tiny bit of silence, and then all of a sudden I heard a male officer, and I know it to be Sergeant Glenn Thomas. I've known Glenn for many years, and him and Brett actually went through the academy together. So he was one of the Helidon crews, and I remember him screaming over the radio, shots fired, and he was saying, it's an automatic gun, we're getting out of here. And even now, just I knew straight away, because there was a bit of silence, I knew straight away something bad, as in someone has been shot. That's what went through my mind. But then I heard Kath saying, our car rolled, and so I immediately just went to my brain that they'd been in a traffic crash. But at that same time, obviously Brett and Kath, their police car had rolled, and the radio handset must have been depressed, so all I could hear was gunshots, like ting, 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 ting. I could hear that going through the radio, so it must have just been locked. So I knew then, my mind, in my gut, I knew that they had been shot at. In my mind, I'm thinking, okay, there's a traffic crash. So in my mind, I just remember thinking, I want to call my mum and dad, go pick up the two boys. I'll go to the hospital with Brett. I'll go sit up there with him and all this kind of stuff. But in reality, that wasn't the case at all. So shots fired. So that I just remember all those tings that seemed to go on forever. And it wasn't automatic. It wasn't just a ting ting. It was continuous, like, an automatic gun. That's exactly what it was over the radio. And I remember Kath screaming over there saying, we're sitting ducks. And I remember her saying that a couple of times, we need help up here, Forty's injured. And for quite a while, and Brett wasn't on the radio, so when he wasn't on the radio, he'd always be one that would be giving updates. He wasn't on the radio at all. So I knew Brett. I think I knew then that he had been shot and something bad had really happened, but I was blocking out of my mind that he had died. I knew it's very hard to describe. I sort of felt like I wasn't there, but I was. It's just a bizarre feeling. Anyway, I remember actually just prior to that, when Brett and Kath did go up that road chasing Madison, I remember at some point my colleague took over from driving the van because I was a bit of a mess just trying to listen to what was happening. And I got my phone and I called Brett twice because I couldn't get the radio. I wanted to tell Brett, don't go any further, just don't continue, just stop. Anyway, I rang him twice, he didn't answer, of course. And I remember when my officer in charge gave me Brett's phone back, at some point I got into his phone and my 2 missed calls came up from then. So that was very hard. Yeah, that was the same time that he would have been shot at. So I remember it was just chaotic. People were just screaming, and I just remember Paul Catherine just silence for a while too, like a real eerie sort of silence on the radio. And anyway, every sort of people were getting called. I remember there's people were calling the lady, my colleague that was driving. Obviously it might have been, I don't know who it was. I know it was people from the station trying to direct her to take me back to the station. Something's happened to Brett. Anyway, I just remember I said to her, no. I said, I'm not going back to the station. You're taking me down there. I said, I'll run. I remember saying, take me as far as you can go. I'm going to run. I'm going to get straight to Brett. I don't care what's happening. If there's shots fired, I've just got to get to Brett. And that's all I wanted to do. So, and I was begging. I was at the stage. I was begging just for someone to take me close so I could be with Brett. Because in my mind, I'm still thinking he's going to hospital. He's going to be okay. My female colleague who was driving the police car was directed to take me back to the Toowoomba station. I wasn't allowed to go anywhere down there, not even to the safe area where everyone was sort of cordoned in the stronghold. And even to that day, I get really upset because I just wanted to be with Brett. If he had passed away, I just wanted to be there with him and just sit there with him and just let him know that I'm there with him, even if he wasn't alive. I just wanted to be there. Anyway, I wasn't allowed again. So at the Toowoomba station, I have, and he's still the officer in charge there, Tony Newman, probably the best human being and best boss you could ever have. And I remember, sorry, it gets a little bit hard. I remember going back to the station and I was a mess. I remember people all standing in the police station when I got back, like sort of doing a guard of honour type thing, and I was sort of wondering, what are they doing? It's all right. I said, Brett's fine. Why are you all standing there looking really sad? Anyway, my officer in charge, he said, look, I'm going to take you down. I'm going to drive you down as far as I can so you can get down there to be with Brett. And at that time, I didn't know that Brett had died, and I don't think my boss knew at that time either. It was sort of didn't have confirmation that Brett was dead. So my officer in charge and a couple of others, we hopped in a car, and I think we're about halfway down to where everything sort of unfolded, where the stronghold was, where obviously the stronghold, for people listening, is where it's a safe place where everyone's sort of gathered around in a safe area. So halfway down, I remember my boss was driving. He got a phone call. I don't know who it was from, but I remember I turned around, I was in the back seat, and I looked behind me, and all cars are following us, like the media. They're right behind our car. Anyway, still to me, I'm just thinking, this is really strange. I'm like in some, it felt like a movie. I didn't know what was happening. Everything was sort of in slow motion. Anyway, I remember my boss started to cry on the phone, and he looked at the other officer next to him, and he just shook his head as to say, no, Brett's gone. So they pulled over on the side of the road, and I remember going into a paddock just with grass everywhere, and that's when my boss told me that Brett had died. So, and I remember just sitting in the paddock, media right there, sitting in the paddock just crying. I didn't know what to do. I remember, obviously Brett's dad was a police officer, so I remember just saying, I don't know whose phone it was, but I remember asking for someone to give me their phone because I had to call Stu. His name's Stuart, so I remember just saying, I've got to call Stu. So I remember ringing up Stu in the grass with someone's phone. I remember just shouting, Brett's dead. And Stu was silent, and he goes, I'm coming up, and then he hung up. I remember my brother, he's a police officer as well. I remember calling, obviously, my parents and my brother, and I just remember, I rang quite a few people, apparently, just said that Brett was dead. And I didn't say anything else and just said Brett was dead. And even that day, just sitting there in the grass, I sort of never forget, because you can sort of hear sirens in the distance still, and I'm here, and Brett wasn't there anymore. So it's just a really horrible feeling. And I remember seeing 2 ambulances driving past towards Toowoomba without their lights on, quite slow. And I remember just looking at it and going, I wonder if Brett's in there. You know, is he in one of those? And then I remember thinking, no, maybe he's gone to the John Tonks already. Like, I was just, because being a police officer, you know that they're going to go to the John Tonks Centre and get an autopsy. And I just had all these really strange things going through my mind. But so after that, I ended up getting back in the car. My boss drove me back. We went back. So Toowoomba Station has the main station, then you've got the district office at the back where all the big bosses and that are. So I remember at some point, I remember Kath actually, I was wearing a headband. I remember Kath came and took a headband off me, and she was covered in, she still had blood and stuff on her, and she took my headband. I just remember that for some reason. Then I went into where they had the chaplain's office. I remember going in there, and there's just heaps of people around it, and there's bosses there. The commissioner, Ian Stewart, was there. I remember him coming in, and he was really good. And I remember, I remember howling. I just remember my mum and dad coming in with the 2 boys. Emma, our daughter, she was 16 at the time, so she was in there crying. Then Brody was 9, he was crying. And then our youngest, Sam, wasn't quite 4, he was happy. Like, he didn't know what was going on. He was there. I remember him playing with a little truck, like just an innocent little boy. And I just remember howling, like, I don't know. It sounds, it wasn't a cry, it was a howl. I just didn't know what was happening, and it just felt all very surreal. And I guess a lot of days after that felt like lots of the community. So that day after that, I don't even remember that night what sort of happened, but I stayed in a motel with family just near the station. And I remember the next day, where the police memorials are, all these flowers are getting left. So heaps of members of the community overnight, even once they found out Brett had been killed and he was from Toowoomba Station, were leaving all flowers and cards. And I still remember how lovely, like, all the community were right there behind everyone, were a massive support, especially in that time. So I remember Brett's funeral was, so Brett died on a Monday. I was begging to see him or be with him. I know that sounds probably very odd, but I didn't get to see him at the funeral home till the following Monday, so a week later. And that week I didn't believe that he was dead. So I guess that was my reassurance, or just confirmation that Brett had died. So it wasn't until that following Monday that I realised, yep, Brett has died. He's at the funeral home. And I also remember as soon as I found out Brett, I am jumping around a little bit because I'm a bit scattered at some things, but I remember when I got told that Brett had died, I remember saying to my boss, look, Brett can't be by himself, he's going to be lonely. He's, because I knew he was going to go to the John Tonks Centre. I knew that he would be in the funeral home, and I was so worried that there'd be no one there with him to keep him company and even listen to his stupid joke. It's just stupid, like someone talking to him and telling Brett jokes, because he would love that. So I remember my boss asked officers at Toowoomba Station, if anyone wanted to go sit with Brett on his way back from the John Tonks Centre, and also at Burstow's funeral home, 24/7, so he had company. And to me, knowing that he had company was the best thing, because I knew there was always someone there with him. He was never alone. So I think my boss even offered overtime for officers to do it, but there wasn't one officer that put in an overtime claim. They all sat there in their own time, 24 hours a day, and a lot of them told me that they appreciate being able to do that because they got their own time to say goodbye to Brett. A lot of them came back to me and said they were telling Brett stupid, inappropriate jokes that they knew he would have laughed at, so all that kind of stuff. So that was comforting, knowing that all those lovely officers just sat out there with Brett because they knew I wanted him to have company. Sorry, I'll just my computer. So obviously then the lead up to so I remember at the funeral home as well, I allowed anyone who wanted to go say their goodbyes to Brett to go and view Brett. I had never thought that as being an appropriate thing prior to Brett dying, but at that time it just felt like a good thing to do. So whoever wanted to go see Brett, it all was arranged, like officers, his good colleagues, friends, they all went in there, had their own time with Brett and got to say goodbye to him. And then I was the very last person to see Brett at the funeral home, and that was probably that would have been the hardest day of my life, because I remember that was the last time I was ever going to see him again. I remember walking out and just looking behind and just saw the top of his head, and I was like, that's it, I'm not going to see him anymore. So that was it. A few days later was obviously Brett's funeral, and that it is a bit of a blur to me, but I remember I wanted to stand up and talk about Brett, do like a eulogy, and I was determined to get up there no matter what and just do it, because I wanted to make Brett proud that I could stand in front of all those people and just say something nice. So our daughter stood up there with me. She was probably more braver than me, but I remember just getting up there, and the audience was covered, all people in blue, all uniforms and members of the community, and that made me feel, that was probably the best feeling as well, because you know that there's so many people there that support police, and also sad to see what happened. And then I looked down, I remember seeing Brett's coffin in the middle, so that was, you know, sort of a nice feeling, but a very, very sad, horrible feeling. And I think Brett was a bit of a character, as probably everyone knows. He was just funny, he loved Borat, he would wear a mankini around the house, like just stuff like that would really shame everyone else, but he didn't care. He'd go and get the mail in a mankini, and people would see him mowing in a mankini. It was just, you know, that was Brett. So I remember going through what we're going to, you know, like a coffin or something for Brett, and they had the standard brown ones and stuff, and I went, no, we can't have that. So I ended up getting a beach theme one. So he had these beach theme things, so that I just remember looking down when I was up on stage ready to give my talk, and I just remember seeing this, you know, the coffin with the beach theme on there and Brett's phone. I'm going, he'd be happy with this. So I remember thinking he'd be so stoked knowing that he's got his picture down there, he's got a beach theme, he's got all these people here. So I think knowing that sort of gave me the courage to have a chat and just talk and say Brett's eulogy. And then that was a lot of that's a bit of a blur as well, sort of after that. I remember the bagpipes, which would always make me tear up before Brett's funeral, but especially on Brett's funeral now afterwards, every time I hear bagpipes, I'm a mess. It's just, I don't know, it's just bagpipes. It just takes you back to sad times. And I remember the flag bearers walked out and the bagpipes, and I followed them out. Followed them out of the big auditorium, because it was at the University of Southern Queensland, the big auditorium there. And I think you guys actually went. So, yeah, you know where I'm talking about anyway. So I remember going out.
Sure did, Susie.
Yeah.
I know that our listeners can't see this, but there's a photograph behind you that you can see our three faces on this recording. That picture was taken at Brett's funeral. That's the last time Schultze wore uniform.
Yeah.
At Brett's funeral.
Oh, that's nice.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah,
Brett would be very stoked about that too.
It was an honour to be there.
Oh, thank you. No, that's nice, and it's very nice knowing that.
That was we're both Toowoomba boys ourselves, so
yeah.
I was in Alice Springs, and obviously Schultze was in Brisbane by then.
Oh yes, yep.
But yeah, no, we were never going to miss that. But we won't interrupt, Susie.
Thank you. Thank you for going.
No, of course.
But yeah, I just remember walking out, and I remember people saying to me, "Look up in the sky." Anyway, I saw the police helicopters flying past, so they were. That was extra special, knowing that pole air in the sky afterwards as well, because they actually had a very huge role in the day. So once Brett was killed, obviously pole air on their way up, and the brave officers in the helicopter were getting shot at by Madison. So they had to keep reaching different altitudes to get away from the bullets. So they were outstanding. So just seeing them in the sky, knowing that they were up, the same officers, you know, like they were up there in the sky. Then you had police horses, a police dog squad, and you had CERT officers, like obviously the Special Emergency Response Team, who are like my heroes, I think. They're just the kindest, most bravest people I think I've ever met. And I remember just walking out and seeing all these people in this massive blue procession on Baker Street there. So you had all these blue uniforms, you had politicians, police from all over the place, and I think there was a New York officer there as well that came over. Everyone was lining up on either side of Baker Street, and it went down. I just remember it just went down for ages. And I remember, obviously Brett's was the first. His car went off with him in there, and I was directly behind I was sitting with Brett's dad next to me and my dad. So I sat in the middle, and I remember just following, and it was very slow, and I could hear the marching, and I remember just looking to the side, and people just showing their respect and crying, and and it's just, there's bagpipes and there is a police band and the horses. So after the pipes and all had sort of stopped, all I could remember hearing was the footsteps of the horses. So just the step by step of the horses, and everything was quiet. And obviously the procession went, to me it felt like it went for a couple of kilometres. And I remember people on the corners of streets, just members of the public with their little children throwing flowers onto the street and all that kind of stuff, and I'll never forget that. And then I remember just on our lead up to where Brett's resting place is, a lot of the traffic officers from all over Queensland on their motorbikes had formed a, a procession type thing as well. So you had all the motorbikes on either side, and they sort of directed Brett in there. To me it felt like 60 motorbikes, police motorbikes, that's what it seemed like to me. And all I remember hearing was the humming of the motorbikes, and that was sort of Brett's last place, and they sort of led him in there with all the humming of the motorbikes, which he would have loved because he loved traffic. So, and they sort of led him into where he's now buried. And then, obviously, then that's when Brett's funeral and sort of happened. And I remember afterwards, a lot of the CERT officers, I wanted to just say hello to them as well, because everyone that was involved in trying to apprehend Madison and look out for all the others, I just wanted to thank them all. So they came out of their way. They were still on duty, obviously, that day, the CERT officers, but they made time to come to where Brett was being buried, and they just gave little Sam with me, because Sam wanted to go to the toilet. He was only 4, so he had no idea what was happening, so he just wanted to go to the toilet and play with his ball. So I remember I went over near the toilets, and the CERT guys were all there, and they gave Sam a hug and gave me a hug. So, and I remember one of them saying it's going to be okay. So, that was it. That was the funeral. I don't know. I'll never forget. It seems like yesterday, but it's over. It's 8.5 years ago now. So, but there's not a day that I don't, not a second of a day I don't not think about it.
Yep, no doubt. It's one of those. You are so uniquely positioned, Susie, because there's lots of police who've responded to that, but it's a mate. Yeah, okay, we've got a mate in trouble here. I can't think of a single, I mean, I'm sure it exists, but I can't think of a single other occurrence where that's not my mate, that's my husband.
Yep.
So this is a big difference, where obviously coppers will scramble to a job like that.
Yeah.
But it's not our tragedy. I mean, it's bad. Police are in trouble. It's bad. But we use the term, it's not our tragedy. Well, this is a police tragedy, absolutely. But this isn't just a police tragedy. This is your family. This is a family tragedy. And you're kind of, I know you didn't operationally respond to it, but you kind of did. So, I can't think of a circumstance where it's my, I'm just obviously just using my experience to sort of put it in perspective. But to me, it's, sure, we've all been to terrible jobs and we've all heard terrible radio comms where you need to scramble, but it's still a work-related problem.
Yeah.
I can't comprehend having my spouse and knowing my spouse was on the other end. I just can't comprehend that. So I really appreciate what you've told us today. This can't be easy. I know it's people might think, it's 8.5 years ago, but you just said it. You think of it every second of every day. It's not 8.5 years ago.
And I think even when you sort of said that as well, knowing it was Brett, even now, like I actually when I heard all the, the automatic shotguns going off of the radio, that was the time I heard, that's the time that Brett got murdered. So essentially I heard my husband get murdered over the radio on the way to get to him. So, yeah, and it's a very surreal sort of feeling. And knowing that you can't get there, like I felt helpless that I couldn't get there. And like I said, I'm a runner as well, so I would have ran for days if I had to, just to get to Brett. And I know it's probably a bit of tunnel vision as well, but I knew what was happening. I knew Madison was out there with that automatic weapon. I didn't care. I just wanted to be dropped off. You let me run. If you can't drive me there, I'm going to run there. I'm going to make sure I get there. So, it's a very, very surreal sort of feeling.
So, I'm kind of lost for words, which is unusual for me. I'm kind of lost for words.
Yes,
That's like Brett too. He would talk with a watermelon in his mouth under concrete or something if he could. He just you couldn't shut him up. That's why I knew something happened when he wasn't on the radio.
Yeah. Well, Kath already told us that he reckons we would have got along brilliantly. All three of us would have been.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
Because it's all humour, it's all serious when it needs to be serious, but most of the time it's having a laugh.
Well, that's why Brett and Kath were very close. Like, I used to refer to Kath as Brett's work wife, because Kath is like a female Brett. So she was funny. She was intelligent. She was funny. She was serious on the job when she had to be, but yet she was very inappropriately funny as well, which was just like Brett. So them two got along very well. And obviously Kath and I get along very well because she is like Brett. She's a character. So, but also very very switched on, amazing police officer. Yeah, and when the job had to be done, she'd get it done.
Yeah, no doubt. It's it's funny how you mentioned that you did nursing at USQ straight out of school. So did I.
Yeah. Oh, did you?
Yeah.
Maybe it was a subject of choice back then.
Yeah, I think quite a few of us ended up cops, but it was I started in 2000, 2001.
Yep.
USQ,
that would have been just after me. Yep.
Yeah, but I wasn't really cut out for it. I did the military first and then the police. But it was interesting because I think the other reason that this was such a touching thing for us was because, for one, it's our hometown. I was in Alice Springs by this stage. Schulte had left and gone back to Brisbane, but only you were still technically in the job, Schulte. You were still there.
Yeah, I was still in the job. Yeah.
So it was very, very personal for us. I remember I made a phone call to the NT Police Association and I just said, look, I haven't approached my boss yet, but I'm just wondering, I'm a Toowoomba boy. I know Kath Nielsen. I don't know if you know this, Susie, but I know Ricky Madison. I know all this. I knew all these people. And I've just gone, I have to be at that funeral. I have to go. When I say I know him, it doesn't sound I'm friends with him. I knew him. I knew who he was. I was a bouncer in Toowoomba back in the day, so I knew.
Oh, of course,
I knew Ricky Madison. So, and not for positive reasons.
Yeah,
I knew because I knew him because we had to deal with him. So, I knew I had to be there. It was someone in the Blue family, and by this stage, I was 10 years in the job, and I remember thinking, you get very protective of your own. You sort of get to a point where you're the big brother. And I know that what you were saying about Brett, how he took charge in that pursuit, I know that we would have got along well because I totally understand that. You're a senior copper. You've got junior guys there. You're the big brother. It becomes fatherly. I honestly did become a little bit fatherly towards the end of my career, but I remember relatively early on becoming big brotherly.
Yeah.
So I completely understand that. And obviously he's taken charge, but I think one of the things to be extraordinarily proud of your husband, in his final act, while mortally wounded, he put a vehicle in reverse and got his partner out of there. Right?
He did. Yep.
So I don't know.
Absolutely.
His last act on this earth was one of heroism. So I don't know. It's a pity I never met the guy because I reckon we would have got along.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, you would have got along. And that would have been the first thing on Brett's mind too, just looking after Kath to that day. Like Brett would have known that he was badly injured, but his priority would have been Kath. So, and miraculously, I'm so thankful nothing happened to Kath, but I don't know how she survived that. Like, I still remember seeing crime scene photos and there's a bullet hole in her headrest. So Kath's obviously moved ahead at the right time or something, you know, or Brett's turned at the right time and just missed. Like, yeah, unbelievable.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's just
Absolutely crazy.
there's
Yeah.
just pure, it's just pure luck. There's
Yep.
Yeah.
nothing. Yeah, it's
Um,
one of those things.
there's one thing I'd like. One thing, Susie, I've spoken about it before, and I know every cop can probably know exactly what I'm saying. But one of
Yep.
the worst feelings I remember in the police was actually hearing the police radio and hearing cops in trouble, and you can't help them.
Yep.
That it absolutely destroyed me because I was
Yep.
working at comms that night in Catherine, and you
Oh,
just want to
yep.
be there with your mates. And
Yep.
yeah, the way you said it there, that's 100 times worse. It's just
Yep.
yeah, it's a terrible feeling.
It's a horrible feeling, yeah. You do. You do anything in your power to get there. And I do that even with any officer. You just do anything in your power to get there. But when you can't get there or told not to go there, you just feel useless. And yeah, that affected me a lot. Not being able to help.
Actually, I'm glad you said that affected you. Like, you know, later on
Yep.
in my career, I was in a position where I was in charge of police forward commands and things like that. And
Yeah.
I, I know hindsight's a wonderful thing, and this is 8.5 years back, and I know things were
Yeah.
different. But I would almost think that if I knew that Brett had passed away and I'm the forward controller, I don't know. I think having. Do you think if you'd have been with Brett, with him in his uniform on the ground, passed away, potentially in a body bag, like how do you think that would have felt? How do you think you would have been with that?
So obviously, being a police officer, I think a lot of us would be very desensitised to seeing dead bodies and body bags and stuff like that. And I have often thought if I was there and Brett was in a body bag, how I would think. I still think it'd be the same for me, no matter what state he was in. It would have made me feel a lot better being next to him, because in my mind I just think him knowing that I was there with him would be so much more comforting, if that sort of makes sense. It's probably a very strange sort of concept, but as Brett's wife as well, I just wanted to be there. Like, I wanted to be that person that was there with him when he went off to wherever he was going, just so that he knew wherever he was, whether heaven's real or not. I just wanted him to know that I was the one that was there with him. But in saying that as well, I'm so thankful that Kath was there when Brett actually did die, and I hope that he knew that that Kath was there with her as well. Because obviously, yeah, if I couldn't be there, my replacement would have been Kath. So one of us was there with him, which is nice.
Yeah, it's a tricky one too. I know that
Yeah,
I know that 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 leadership role is very hard. Like, that's a very, very difficult position to be in, because you
yeah,
need to. Obviously, if you were a civilian, that would not be an option.
no, absolutely not. Yes,
But
yep,
you weren't a civilian,
no,
and this is where it gets. I don't know. I just can't believe it, Susie. You've got. I just think you're the bravest person. It would have just been devastating. I can't possibly imagine what you went through that day, and I just it just, because to me the separation of work and home was an enormous thing. My wife is not a copper. She was a school
yeah,
teacher.
yep,
My kids, well, they knew what police uniforms were, but mum and dad didn't both wear one. It was just, oh, well, dad didn't wear one much either, so they didn't
yeah,
really. Um, it wasn't that, and that's the other thing when you're talking about your older kids who knew what was going on, being really upset, but then your
yeah,
4-year-old just playing that innocence of childhood.
yeah,
I just putting it all together. It's the mixture of family, which is your protected safe space, and then the
yep.
fact is it's not necessarily like that, because it's very mixed in with the policing world. So
That's right. It makes it complicated.
yeah, but I don't know. I want to push on with talk about the Twilight Zone, but you sort of mentioned all that. You went through the actual incident, and then the week following, and then leading up to the funeral. I must admit, both of us, there wasn't a dry eye in that in that Guard of Honour. We were on the northern side of Baker Street, down near McGregor College, if you know the area there. So
Oh, I do, yes.
yeah, so we were
Yep.
probably halfway along
Oh,
the actual whole thing on your left
yep,
hand side, and I remember
yep,
very vividly seeing you and seeing I didn't know who they were, but the people in the car with you were obviously Stuart and your dad,
yeah,
and it was the first. It wasn't my first police funeral, but it was. I've been to quite a few, unfortunately, but it
yeah,
was. I don't know why it really affected me. It was almost like, in my mind, it was the separation of work and home, because work for me was the Northern Territory. Policing was the
yeah,
Northern Territory.
yep,
Well, here I am in my Northern Territory police uniform next to my mate from the Northern Territory Police Force, surrounded
mm,
by a sea of Queensland police officers in my
yeah,
hometown in Baker Street, 100 metres from the student village that I used to drink
oh,
at when I was a dumb uni student. And it was that blending of the two again. So,
yeah.
but it wasn't in my family. So I want you to know that we were there for you that day. And I mean, we didn't know you, but we knew,
No, thank
the
you.
circumstances. But
And
it was,
I wholeheartedly, yeah, so thankful that you guys were there and just so many people were there. So, and I think knowing everyone was there, that sort of has got me through a lot of things as well, knowing all that support and yeah, that fear. And I often laugh, like, it's good to have a bit of black humour. As you know, being police, you have to have a bit of black humour. I often joke to people, I go, look, Brett gets 5,000 plus people going to his funeral. I'll probably get 5 people if I'm lucky when I die. So, I'm like, trust Brett to have that many people. So,
yeah,
but no, yeah. So,
yeah, you
it was
trade
good.
years for numbers.
Yeah, that's
What you
right.
want to aim at is to die at 105 with 4 people there. That's a good
Yeah,
outcome.
yeah, yep.
Yeah, yeah,
That's true. Yeah,
That's,
but
that's
no,
well said, Damo.
and
yeah,
yeah, I like that one
yeah,
too.
yeah. No,
But
but I
no,
mean, on the sadder side of things is you don't want to die at 42 with 5,000
no,
people there, and
no,
that's the
that's
thing.
right.
To me, it's like, I know that, but you mentioned the dark humour, and
Yep,
I hear you. I hear you.
it sort of gets you through, doesn't it?
It
Oh,
bloody
it
does.
does.
And
Yep,
some of the
Yeah,
stuff
otherwise
that
you'd be a
I
bloody
know,
mess.
the
yeah,
things that you and Kath have told me about Brett, I just know that we would have been. I worked in a very similar team. Like, was basically a attack crime team in Darwin City,
yep.
and I just know. I know what he would have been like. I've
Oh
met
yes,
50 Bretts. I
yep.
know what he would have been like, and I know that we would have got along. We would have been famously good mates. And
Oh, absolutely. Yep, absolutely. And he probably would have been like a brother figure to you. He still would have protected you no matter what service or whatever you had.
yeah,
He
yeah.
still would
Well,
have
no,
been
he
out
was senior
there.
to me. Yeah, he
Yep,
Yeah,
was he was
yeah.
senior to
yep.
me.
And he would have,
Little,
yep. He would have said, "Stay behind. I've got this." Yep.
Yeah, he's like, bullshit, Brett. We're going. Let's go,
Yeah.
brother. Yeah,
You two would have been very good together.
yeah. No, that's good.
Yeah.
Well, Silty,
yeah.
I think we had a bit of a plan to ask more questions, but you've kind of, I think we don't need to push this one any further. This one
No.
was supposed to be the human experience of what you went through. Um,
Yep.
you had me, I couldn't have spoken for a little while in there. You had me.
Oh, I
Um,
couldn't even get some of my word. I probably sound a bit dumb at times. I couldn't even get my words out. I was
No,
stumbling a little bit, but that's okay.
no, no, you've run rings
yeah.
around me. I couldn't have done it. But look,
Oh,
to our
thank
listeners out there, obviously, this is a hell of a thing for Susie, a police officer on duty at the time that her fellow police officer husband is murdered in the execution of his duty. So I can't think of a single other circumstance, but obviously we want to talk more down the track about the aftermath, and then obviously you and Kath
Yep.
went through a bit of an ordeal with the inquest and all the rest of it. And if you're happy,
Yes,
Susie, we'd love to talk to you more about that. But I don't
absolutely.
know. I think we just honour Brett this time and just go, that was what happened, and this is what his wife went through, and that's the human nature or the very humanness of this experience.
Yeah.
If you're
Yeah.
happy,
I don't think
Silty.
it's going to happen to you, but it can.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. I'll just have one quick question for you, Susie.
Yep, sure.
For a period of time, my wife at the time was a police officer,
Yep.
and she'd gone through training and she joined the job. And I remember a couple of people asked me. I never worked. I worked on the same shift as her, but never worked like alongside her, except when
Yep.
2 units were required at a job and all
Yeah.
that sort of stuff. Um, One of the things people actually asked me was, do I ever worry about her when she's on shift? And at the time she was working with the famous Jason Dingle, who's probably one of the safest coppers you could ever get. The guy's an absolute machine. And I said, you know what, with Dingle, I know that if somebody, the only time she would get injured was when Dingle got taken out.
Yeah.
So I never really, I can honestly say I never really worried so much about it. Like, can you explain, like you and Brett in the police? Did he ever go to jobs and you worry, or?
I like Brett would often say, obviously, like what you said, Brett would often say that he didn't like me doing shift work and that on the road because it is dangerous. But he'd always say, but look, I know you've got your colleagues that would back you up in a second and they'd be there for you. But I think I probably worried more for Brett, only because his unit dealt a lot more with high risk type people. So, like if there is, like obviously drug offenders and weapons, they would deal a lot with that. But also, it's like with Brett, I'd be worried about him, but I knew he could look after himself. Like Brett was Black Dan Taekwondo. He would go to a job, it'd be people angry, people everywhere. He would have that nature. He could just bring people down to a level that they're laughing with him at the end. So in a sense, I was, yes, worried that he'd be going to high risk jobs, but I knew he could take care of himself. And if anything, he'd walk away having a good chat to the offender instead of getting into a fight or something like that. So, but yeah, I hope that answered your question. You obviously worry, but you're surrounded by colleagues that you
Yeah.
work with all the time too that will be there too.
And I think that was part of mine, having like working with Jason Dingle and
Yeah,
a lot of the Catherine police at that time. They were just exceptional. They're
yeah,
with
that's
you,
awesome.
brotherhood or sisterhood, and
Yeah,
it's going to be looked after. There's always
yeah,
people backing you up. So
absolutely. Yeah,
Actually, you make a really good point. The fact that both of you, were married to other police. So I never was, and I think it was almost ignorance that protected my wife from what went on.
I
Um,
think it's good. I think
yeah,
that's good for a lot of times. Yeah,
yeah. She just had no idea. She'd hear
yeah,
the jobs from other people if she came to the police club or came to a social function or something. Someone would go, "Oh my God, did Dame I tell you about this job the other day? We had this," and she would go, "What?" And
you
then
didn't
she'd
tell
say,
me
"Did
about
you go
that.
to a job where the knife guy came at you with it?" And I was like, "Oh yeah,
Yep,
what? That's none of your business." Like,
yep,
but I mean, obviously, when you're in this job together, it almost you have to be beyond ignorant because you know what the
yes,
job's like. You need to know that the people with them that they are going to be safe. And I think it's not the people that he was with. Obviously, he was very safe. Him and Kath were very
oh,
capable. It was just the
yes,
situation.
yeah,
No one was safe there. No one. It
no,
wouldn't matter who you were. You
that's
are not
exactly
safe.
right. Yep,
You're in a
exactly
bloody,
right.
was it a D-Max? And was it D-Max or
Yep,
a Hilux? So they're in
yeah,
an Isuzu
D-Max.
D-Max.
Yep,
Bloody
and
good
even
car. The
yep.
armour's not very good when they're stock standard. So,
no,
Well, even going back to the D-Max, like even another weird thing, Brett loved traffic, so he'd always sign out the unmarked Holden Commodore station wagon. So even that day, he signed out the big, bulky D-Max, which, yeah, didn't have much guts in it, but even that was another weird thing when you look at it, you're like, why is Brett driving that for? But anyway, yeah.
that probably would have been our one little point of difference when we were having a beer. Was I
yeah,
would have ribbed him about his traffic. That would have
Oh,
been,
I know. Yep,
yeah,
yep. He loved it, and because he idolised his dad so much, being his dad was an officer in charge of the traffic squad as well. So I think he just wanted to be like his dad as well. They were very close, and I think being an officer in charge of a traffic squad, Brett would have just retired on something like that. And yeah, just like son. Same
yeah.
humour too, actually.
No, very good.
yeah.
Sounds like I
Yeah,
get along with Stu as
And,
well.
oh
you
yeah,
sure
yeah.
would. Yep.
Yeah. No, it's really
Actually,
good.
just before we finish off, I was never a traffic cop. The only time I'd use it if I need to prove a point, or
Yeah.
or just a shit bag we want to harass.
Yep.
Um, but however, since I've left the job and live in Brisbane, I'll tell you what, I'd love to be a traffic cop here. It'd be like shooting
Gold
fish
mine.
in a barrel.
Yep.
It's
Shooting fish in a barrel, Shilty. Yeah.
Yep. Absolutely.
No, but Susie, look, obviously we really appreciate this. I know it's 8.5 years. There's a little bit of time there, but like you say, it's every second of every day.
It
We're
sure
really
is.
grateful this week. We're looking forward to the next couple of conversations. I think this one just honours Brett. I think we just leave it at
Yeah,
that, and we'll move on
that's
to the next
nice.
one and go from there.
That sounds good. Thank you, guys.
Well, no, thank you.
That's
Um,
okay.
it was, yeah, no, you did an incredible job. And like I said, it's not too often the two ordinary cops get left speechless. So, yeah, it was really powerful. Thank
Oh,
you.
thank you.
Yeah, so
Thank
we,
you,
we normally
guys.
say it's the 300 cops, but it certainly isn't today. So
Yeah.
no, we really appreciate it, and look,
Well, it's lovely
stay.
talking to you.
Yeah, definitely, and we'll obviously we'll talk again, Susie, in the next couple of weeks. So we'll get a couple of
Sounds good.
episodes and cover
Yeah.
everything off about the whole
And just,
experience. But
yeah, stay on. We'll have a quick chat afterwards,
Yep.
and yep,
Perfect.
let the system catch up. So,
Sounds good.
all right.
yeah, so
Well, that's
let
it.
us know, or let us know as well. Like, listeners, let us know. Get in touch. We can pass the information straight on to Susie. So you've got the opportunity now to communicate to Susie and let her know your feelings about the whole situation. I know it was 8.5 years ago, but I still remember it. I remember exactly where I was sitting in my backyard in Mercarella Circuit in East Satadine in Alice Springs when Schultzy texts me and goes, "There's been a police shooting in Toowoomba," and I then followed, and I never looked away for the next 3 hours. So, and then he's gone. He's passed away, and I remember it vividly. I know exactly where I was. I didn't know Brett, and I didn't know Kath was involved. I just knew it was in Toowoomba, and
Yeah.
so I can't possibly imagine what you went through that day. So that's us.
Yeah, that's it.
Thanks,
Signing
guys.
off. So, yeah, the two ordinary cops, and we'll see you again next week. And yeah, Susie, we look forward to the next bit of the story. Or
Likewise.
yeah, all right. That's two
All
ordinary
right,
cops.
guys.